Commander Dre Eyes stared through the observation port as their ship descended toward the blue-green planet below. Earth, the third planet of a rather unremarkable solar system, looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. According to intelligence reports, it was inhabited by a primitive but rapidly evolving bipedal species that had only recently achieved rudimentary space travel. Landing zone secured, Commander, reported Strategic Officer Thex, her 6 fingers dancing across the holographic display. Preliminary scans show minimal technological signatures in the selected area, perfect for establishing our forward operating base without detection. Dre Eyes nodded, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Excellent. The High Command has been clear. Establish foothold, gather intelligence, prepare for the integration of this world into the hegemony. These humans will hardly know what's happening until it's too late. The sleek hegemony vessel sliced through Earth's atmosphere, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it virtually invisible to the primitive radar systems the humans employed. As the ship descended into a remote, forested area surrounded by mountains, Thex furrowed her scaly brow. Commander, I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures approximately 3 kilometers from our landing zone. They appear to be consistent with primitive combustion engines and basic electromagnetic communications. Dre Eyes dismissed her concern with a wave of his clawed hand. Probably just some locals. Nothing our forward team can't handle if necessary. He straightened his armor, the polished purple-black metal reflecting the ship's ambient lighting. Remember, Strategic Officer Thex, these humans have barely mastered nuclear fission. The most advanced military units they possess would be laughably outmatched by even our scout drones. Thex nodded dutifully, though something in her posture suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. As you say, Commander, I've prepared the elite strike team for immediate deployment upon landing. The ship touched down silently in a small clearing, the vegetation beneath it briefly flattening from the gravitational distortion before springing back as the engines powered down. Commander Dre Eyes led the first wave of troops down the deployment ramp, breathing in the alien air through his filtration mask. Primitive, but not unpleasant, he remarked, surveying the tall trees surrounding them. Let's establish a perimeter and begin setting up the base modules. As the hegemony soldiers moved with precision to secure the area, none of them noticed the small group of humans watching from a ridge approximately 2 kilometers away. Staff Sergeant Maria Torres lowered her binoculars, her face a mask of disbelief. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" she whispered to the soldiers crouched beside her. Private Johnson, a skinny young man with perpetually wide eyes, nodded enthusiastically. "Holy shit, Sarge. That's a goddamn spaceship with actual aliens. Like real aliens." Corporal Reese, weathered and stoic as always, simply grunted. "Well, this certainly wasn't in the weekend training manual." Torres felt a cold sweat break out across her forehead. Her National Guard Scout unit had been deployed for a routine weekend training exercise in these mountains. Navigation, survival, basic tactical maneuvers. Nothing in their orders had mentioned making first contact with an extraterrestrial species. "Johnson, take out your phone and start recording. Reese, radio back to base. Use emergency protocol alpha. Tell them." She paused, wondering what exactly one should say in this situation. "Tell them we have a non-terrestrial incursion. Request immediate support and further instructions." "You think they'll believe us?" Johnson asked, fumbling with his phone. "Probably not," Torres admitted, "but they'll send someone to check it out anyway." As Reese moved away to make the call, Torres continued observing the aliens through her binoculars. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with an insectoid appearance. Their movements were precise and coordinated as they began unloading equipment from their ship and establishing what looked suspiciously like defensive positions. "They're setting up a base," she muttered. "This isn't just a visit. They're planning to stay." When Reese returned, his expression was grim. "Base thinks we're pulling a prank. They're sending Lieutenant Rivera to check on our mental state." He shook his head. "ETA, 3 hours." Torres swore under her breath. In 3 hours, these things could have a fortress built. We need to gather more intel before Rivera gets here. She made a quick decision. We'll move closer, stay concealed, and document everything we can. Non-engagement unless absolutely necessary. The three soldiers began carefully making their way down the ridge, using the dense forest for cover. Torres had selected her team for this weekend's exercise specifically for their skills. Reese was a former Marine with 2 tours in Afghanistan. Johnson was a tech specialist with an uncanny ability to improvise, and the other 3 members of their unit were equally capable in their own ways. Private McKenzie, their communications expert, kept a constant relay open to base despite their disbelief. Corporal Zhang, weapons specialist, kept his M4 carbine at the ready, while Private Rodriguez scouted slightly ahead, using hand signals to guide their approach. As they drew closer to the alien encampment, Torres motioned for the team to halt and take cover behind a fallen tree. From this vantage point, approximately 500 meters from a ship, they could see the aliens more clearly. "Count 12 tangos," whispered Zhang, heavily armed with what looked like energy weapons. Their armor appears substantial. Johnson was recording everything on his phone. "This is insane," he whispered. "They're actually building structures. Look at that. They touch these cube things and they just unfold." Torres was formulating a plan to circle around the perimeter when disaster struck. Rodriguez, who had moved slightly ahead to scout, suddenly froze as an alien drone, approximately the size of a basketball, silently hovered into view directly in front of him. For a moment, both Rodriguez and the drone seemed equally surprised. Then the drone emitted a high-pitched wailing sound that cut through the forest like a siren. "We're compromised," Torres shouted, abandoning stealth. "Defensive positions." The reaction from the alien camp was immediate. Several of the tall insectoid figures turned toward their position, raising their weapons. A moment later, brilliant blue energy bolts began tearing through the underbrush around them. "Return fire," Torres ordered, shouldering her rifle and taking aim at the nearest alien. The sharp crack of gunfire echoed through the forest as the human squad opened up on their attackers. The aliens seemed momentarily stunned by the resistance. One took a round to what appeared to be its shoulder and staggered back, green fluid spurting from the wound. Another alien was caught directly in the face by Zhang's well-placed shot and dropped immediately. Commander Dreyes couldn't believe what he was seeing. His forward team was taking fire, actual projectile fire, how primitive, and 2 of his soldiers were already down. This wasn't supposed to happen. The intelligence briefing had assured them this area was sparsely populated, with no military presence. "Strategic Officer Thex," he bellowed into his communicator. "We are under attack by human forces. Deploy the assault drones and heavy weapons team." Thex's voice came back, sounding uncharacteristically flustered. "Commander, our sensors didn't detect any significant military presence in this region. These must be special forces, a covert response team." Dreyes ducked as a bullet ricocheted off the deployment module next to him. "I don't care what they are. Eliminate them." Back in the forest, Torres and her team were falling back in a leapfrog pattern, using the terrain to their advantage. Years of training in these very woods gave them an edge that was temporarily offsetting the aliens' technological superiority. "Johnson, those smoke grenades," Torres called out. Johnson pulled 2 smoke grenades from his pack and tossed them in a wide arc. They detonated with satisfying pops, quickly filling the area between them and the aliens with thick gray smoke. "Fall back to position, Bravo," Torres ordered. "Mackenzie, any word from base?" "Still think we're joking, Sarge," Mackenzie replied, firing a few rounds blindly into the smoke. "But Rivera's on his way with a Humvee and some MPs." A strange whining sound cut through the air, and suddenly 3 spherical drones burst through the smoke cloud, each one trailing a glowing blue light. "Take cover," Reese shouted just before the drones opened fire. Blue energy bolts slammed into trees and ground around them, superheating the material and causing small explosions of dirt and wood. Zhang managed to shoot one of the drones down, sending it spiraling into a tree with a satisfying crunch of metal. Rodriguez took aim at another, but cried out as an energy bolt grazed his arm, leaving a nasty burn. "I'm hit," he called, but continued firing with his good arm. Torres grabbed a fallen branch and, in a moment of desperate improvisation, hurled it like a javelin at the closest drone. Remarkably, it struck the device squarely, knocking it off balance long enough for Reese to put 2 rounds through its central mass. The last drone retreated back toward the alien camp, presumably to report on their resistance. Commander Dreyes was receiving the drone footage in real time through his neural interface, and what he saw baffled him. The humans were using ridiculous primitive weapons, chemical propellant firearms, and thrown objects, yet somehow they had destroyed 2 of their advanced combat. Drones. Impossible, he muttered. These must be their elite warriors. Thex appeared at his side, her expression grave. "Commander, I recommend we secure the ship and establish defensive positions. We clearly underestimated the human response capability." Dreyes hissed in frustration. "No, we will not cower from these primitives. Prepare the shock troops. We will eliminate this threat and proceed with the mission." As the alien commander issued his orders, Torres and her team had reached a rocky outcropping that provided better cover. Rodriguez's wound had been hastily bandaged, and Torres was taking stock of their situation. "6 magazines left between us," she reported grimly. 2 smoke grenades, 1 frag, and whatever's in our sidearms. "We held them off," Zhang said, a note of pride in his voice. "Didn't expect that, did they?" Torres nodded. "But they'll regroup. We need to get word back about what's happening here." She turned to Johnson. "Tell me you've been recording all of this." Johnson patted his chest pocket where his phone was secured. "Every second, Sarge. If we make it out of here, we'll have the craziest TikTok ever." Despite the dire situation, Torres couldn't help but smile at the young private's gallows humor. "All right, listen up. We've bought ourselves some time, but those things are going to come looking for us. We need to." She was interrupted by a massive explosion from the direction of the alien camp. A shockwave rippled through the forest, flattening smaller trees and showering them with debris. "They're bringing out the big guns," Reese observed calmly, checking his weapon. "Getting serious now." Torres made a quick decision. "We can't match them for firepower. We need to use guerrilla tactics. Hit and fade, use the terrain, make them work for every inch." She pointed to a densely wooded slope to their east. "We'll head for the old hunting cabins. There's supplies there, maybe a radio with better range than ours." As they moved out, Torres couldn't shake the feeling that they had just stumbled into the opening act of humanity's greatest challenge. And all because they happened to be on a routine training exercise in the wrong place at the wrong time. Back on the Hegemony warship hovering in high orbit above Earth, Admiral Yerkes was not pleased. The massive alien-scaled skin had darkened to a deep purple, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. Before him, Commander Dreyes' holographic form stood at rigid attention, clearly aware of his precarious position. "Let me understand this correctly, Commander," Yerkes rumbled, his translated voice vibrating with barely contained fury. "Your advance team was detected, engaged, and suffered casualties against a small group of humans armed with primitive projectile weapons." Dreyes' antennae twitched nervously. "Admiral, they must have been an elite special forces unit. Their tactics were sophisticated, and they appeared intimately familiar with the terrain." "Special forces?" the Admiral repeated skeptically. "Our intelligence suggests that human special forces typically deploy with advanced equipment, night vision devices, communication arrays, heavy weapons. Did you observe any such technology?" Dreyes hesitated. "Well, no, Admiral. Their equipment was basic, but their tactics allowed them to kill 3 of your soldiers and destroy 2 combat drones," Yerkes interrupted. "Do you understand what this means, Commander? Either our intelligence on human military capabilities is catastrophically wrong, or your unit's performance was—" He leaned forward, his massive face filling Dreyes' holographic view. "Embarrassingly inadequate." Strategic Officer Thex stepped forward, her slender form appearing beside Dreyes in the holographic projection. "Admiral, if I may. We're analyzing the combat data now. The humans demonstrated remarkable adaptability and used the forest environment to substantial advantage. However, with proper preparation, we can neutralize this threat quickly. Admiral Yerkes leaned back in his command throne. You have 6 hours, Commander. Eliminate these humans, secure your landing zone, and establish the forward base as planned. Failure to do so will result in your immediate replacement and reassignment to waste management on the Scorlian mining colonies. His massive clawed hand made a cutting motion. That is all. The holographic communication terminated, leaving Dreyeyes and Thex standing in the ship's communication chamber. That went well, Thex remarked dryly. Dreyeyes turned to her, his compound eyes reflecting the chamber's blue lighting. The Admiral is right. We were unprepared and sloppy. That ends now. He pulled up a holographic display of the forest area. Run a complete tactical analysis. I want to know every advantage these humans might have, and how to counter it. Deploy our remaining drones in search patterns. Find them. Thex nodded, her fingers already manipulating the holographic controls. Commander, have you considered that we might be facing a larger human force than initially detected? Perhaps this was merely their forward element. Dreyeyes considered this. Possible but unlikely. Our sensors would have detected larger troop movements or energy signatures from heavier weapons. He shook his head. No, this is a small unit, possibly a reconnaissance team. They caught us by surprise, but they can't stand against our full might. As the hegemony forces regrouped and planned their next move, Torres and her team had reached the hunting cabins. 3 rustic wooden structures nestled in a small valley approximately 4 kilometers from the alien landing site. They had moved quickly, using every bit of cover the forest provided. Mackenzie, check the radio equipment. Rodriguez, how's that arm? Torres asked as they secured the perimeter of the largest cabin. Rodriguez flexed his injured arm gingerly. Hurts like hell, Sarge, but I can still shoot. Zhang and Johnson were already rummaging through the cabins, looking for anything useful. Johnson emerged from the smallest cabin with a triumphant grin. Jackpot, he announced, holding up an old but well-maintained hunting rifle with a scope. Remington 700, looks like .308 caliber. There's about 40 rounds for it too. Zhang followed with an armload of first aid supplies. Found these too, and there's some canned food, lanterns, and a few other essentials. Torres nodded approvingly. Good work. Mackenzie, anything on comms? The communications specialist shook her head in frustration. The radio here is ancient, Sarge. I can boost our signal somewhat, but we're still limited by the mountains. Keep trying, Torres ordered. In the meantime, let's fortify this position as best we can. Zhang, take Johnson and set up some early warning systems on the approaches. Anything that makes noise if our visitors come calling. As her team dispersed to their tasks, Torres took a moment to study the smartphone footage Johnson had captured. The aliens were clearly visible, tall, insectoid creatures with advanced technology and weapons that seemed straight out of science fiction. Their ship was unlike anything she had ever seen, apparently constructed of a seamless metallic material that shifted colors slightly, depending on the angle of view. What the hell have we gotten ourselves into? She muttered to herself. Reese appeared at her side, his weathered face impassive as always. Thinking about the Alamo, Sarge? Torres smiled grimly. Something like that. We're massively outgunned here, Reese. The veteran corporal nodded slowly. True, but we've got a few things going for us. We know these woods better than they do. We've shown we can hurt them, and they clearly weren't expecting resistance. He checked his watch. Plus, Lieutenant Rivera should be about an hour out now. One lieutenant with a Humvee and a couple of MPs isn't exactly the cavalry, Torres pointed out. No, Reese agreed. But once they see Johnson's footage, the real cavalry won't be far behind. Torres considered this. All right, so our job is to survive and keep these visitors contained until help arrives. And collect as much intel as possible, Reese added. Torres nodded and stood up, newfound determination in her posture. Let's get to work then. Those aliens want to fight? We'll show them why you don't mess with the National Guard, even on a weekend training exercise. Strategic Officer Thex's analysis was complete, and the results were troubling. She projected a holographic map for Commander Dre Eyes, highlighting the humans' suspected location. They've retreated to these structures. She indicated 3 small buildings nestled in a valley. Thermal imaging shows 6 heat signatures consistent with human biology. Dre Eyes studied the map. Just 6? Our initial encounter suggested at least that many. Correct. It appears we are indeed dealing with a small scouting unit, not a major military force. Thex zoomed in on the terrain. However, they've chosen their position well. The approach is limited, with clear fields of fire. They likely have established defensive positions. Dre Eyes contemplated the tactical situation. What about their reinforcements? Any sign of approaching human forces? Thex hesitated. Our long-range sensors detect a single ground vehicle approaching from the south, still approximately 50 Earth miles away. It appears to be a light transport of some kind, possibly military. Just one vehicle? Dre Eyes seemed puzzled. If this was a significant contact situation, wouldn't they deploy more substantial forces? Perhaps they don't yet realize what they're facing, Thex suggested. Or possibly this is merely the advance element of a larger response force. Dre Eyes made his decision. We can't wait to find out. Prepare the assault team. We'll take the recon drones and the heavy weapons squad. He pointed to the holographic map. We'll approach from these 3 vectors, targeting their communication equipment first. I want prisoners this time, particularly their leader. The Admiral expects results, and I intend to deliver. Thex inclined her head in acknowledgement, but couldn't completely hide her concern. Commander, we should be prepared for unconventional tactics. These humans have already demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Dre Eyes' mandibles clicked impatiently. They got lucky once, Thex. It won't happen again. As dusk began to fall over the mountains, Torres and her team had transformed the hunting cabins into a surprisingly effective defensive position. Johnson and Zhang had rigged rudimentary alarm systems using cooking pots, fishing line, and other items found in the cabins. Rodriguez, despite his injury, had helped Mackenzie boost their radio signal using parts from an old television antenna. Any contact with base? Torres asked as Mackenzie fine-tuned the radio. Intermittent, the communications specialist replied. I got through briefly, told them about the aliens, but I'm not sure they believe me. The lieutenant is still on his way, though. Torres nodded. Keep trying. What about our friends out there? Any sign of movement? Reese, who had been watching through the hunting rifle scope, shook his head. Nothing yet, but they'll come. No way they just pack up and leave after what happened. Johnson, who had been unusually quiet for the past hour, suddenly spoke up. Hey, Sarge, I've been thinking, these aliens, they've got to be from somewhere, right? Like, there must be more of them. Torres raised an eyebrow. Your point, Private? Well, Johnson continued, warming to his topic. In all the movies, the scout ships always report back to the mothership. What if these guys are just the advance team for a full-scale invasion? The cabin fell silent as everyone considered this disturbing possibility. Johnson's got a point, Zhang said finally. If these are just scouts, we need to take at least one of them alive. Get information. Torres had been thinking along similar lines. Agreed. But first priority is still survival and containment until reinforcements arrive. She checked her watch. Rivera should be here within the hour. Until then, we hold position and stay alert. As if on cue, one of Johnson's alarm systems triggered. The clatter of cooking pots falling from a tripwire echoed through the darkening forest. Contact west. Reese called out, peering through the rifle scope. Movement in the trees, about 300 meters out. Everyone to positions, Torres ordered calmly. Remember, we want prisoners if possible. Aim for limbs, not center mass. The team moved to their assigned defensive positions, Torres and Rodriguez in the main cabin, Zhang and Mackenzie in the second cabin, and Reese and Johnson taking up sniper positions in the loft of the third cabin. Through his scope, Reese could see them now, shadowy figures moving through the forest with an eerie grace that was decidedly non-human. He counted at least 8, approaching in a standard pincer formation. They're splitting up, he reported quietly into his radio. 3 coming directly at the main cabin, 2 moving toward the east, 3 toward the west. They got some kind of floating weapons platform with them. Torres acknowledged the report and steeled herself. The approaching aliens would have night vision capabilities, advanced weapons, and probably body armor. Her team had hunting rifles, standard-issue sidearms, and whatever makeshift defenses they had managed to create. Not great odds, but they had surprise on their side. The aliens clearly expected to overwhelm them quickly. They were about to learn that humans, even weekend warriors from the National Guard, weren't so easily defeated. The first alien drone that entered the clearing in front of the cabins triggered another of Johnson's traps. A simple but effective snare yanked the spherical machine upward, smashing it into a tree branch. The drone sparked and went dark, dangling uselessly from the rope. The alien infantry immediately opened fire, blue energy bolts slamming into the cabins and surrounding trees. Wood splintered and caught fire where the bolts hit, but the thick old logs of the cabins held for now. "Return fire," Torres ordered. "Make every shot count." The night erupted in gunfire as the National Guard squad engaged their extraterrestrial attackers. Reese, true to his reputation as the unit's best marksman, picked off one of the aliens immediately, the high-powered hunting rifle round punching through what appeared to be a joint in the creature's armor. Zhang and Mackenzie focused their fire on the floating weapons platform, forcing it to take cover behind a large boulder. Johnson, showing unexpected calm under pressure, managed to wound another alien with a well-placed shot to its leg. The aliens responded with increasing firepower, their energy weapons carving chunks out of the cabins and setting portions of the roof ablaze. One bolt came through a window, narrowly missing Rodriguez and leaving a smoking hole in the wall behind him. "They're pressing the attack on the east side," Mackenzie called over the radio. "2 of them trying to flank us." Torres made a split-second decision. "Johnson, take Rodriguez and reinforce the east. Reese, keep providing cover fire. I'm going to try something." Without waiting for acknowledgement, Torres grabbed her backup weapon, a 12-gauge shotgun she'd found in the main cabin, and slipped out the back door. Using the growing shadows to her advantage, she circled around toward where the aliens' floating weapons platform had taken position. Commander Dreyes directed the assault from a position of relative safety behind the tree line, monitoring the battle through the visual feeds from his soldiers' armor. The humans were putting up far more resistance than anticipated, and his frustration was mounting. "Press the attack," he ordered. "Squad 2, circle around to their eastern flank. Heavy weapons team, target the central structure." The floating platform rose from behind its cover, its main cannon charging with an ominous blue glow. Before it could fire, however, multiple bullets slammed into its housing from different directions, one striking a critical component. The platform wobbled in the air, its cannon powering down. "What is happening?" Dreyes demanded. "Why isn't the weapons platform firing?" Strategic Officer Thex, who was monitoring the battle from the ship, responded with clear concern in her voice. "Commander, the humans appear to have established interlocking fields of fire. They're using extremely primitive but effective tactics." Dreyes hissed in anger. "They're using sticks and stones compared to our technology. How are they managing to resist us?" Before Thex could respond, a new alert sounded. "Commander, motion detector behind your position." Dreyes whirled around just in time to see a human figure emerge from the shadows. A female, wearing some kind of camouflage uniform, holding what appeared to be a primitive shotgun. Before he could raise his weapon, the human fired, the shotgun blast catching one of his soldiers squarely in the back and sending the alien crashing to the ground. Torres pumped the shotgun and fired again, this time aiming for what she hoped was the alien commander, a slightly larger figure giving orders from behind the lines. The buckshot tore through the foliage but missed its target as the alien dove for cover. Realizing she was now exposed, Torres turned and sprinted back toward the cabins, zigzagging through the trees as blue energy bolts sliced through the darkness around her. "Fall back to the main cabin," she ordered over the radio. "Bring anything you can carry. We're consolidating." Inside his armored suit, Commander Dreyeyes was seething with rage and disbelief. These humans, these primitives, had ambushed him, wounded his soldiers, and were now retreating in good order to a consolidated position. It was tactically sound and completely unexpected. All units, focus fire on the main structure, he commanded. Burn it to the ground if necessary. As Torres reached the relative safety of the main cabin, she found her team already implementing her order, falling back from the smaller cabins with weapons and supplies. The aliens' energy weapons were now concentrated on their position, the wooden walls beginning to char and catch fire in multiple places. "Mackenzie, status on communication?" Torres demanded as she reloaded the shotgun. "Still no clear signal to base," Mackenzie reported grimly. "Too much interference. Might be coming from their technology." "What about Lieutenant Rivera?" "Last contact was 20 minutes ago. He should be within 5 miles by now." Torres did some quick mental calculations. Even if Rivera arrived in the next few minutes, one lieutenant with a couple of MPs in a Humvee wouldn't be enough to turn the tide against these aliens and their advanced weapons. "We need to buy more time," she decided. "Johnson, those propane tanks in the back. Can you rig them to blow?" Johnson's eyes widened, then a mischievous grin spread across his face. "Hell yes, Sarge. Give me 2 minutes." As Johnson worked, the rest of the team continued returning fire through windows and improvised loopholes, keeping the aliens at bay. The building was growing increasingly hot as multiple small fires burned along the walls and roof. 60 seconds, and we're out of here," Torres announced. "Rear exit, down to the stream bed, then east toward the road. With any luck, we'll run into Rivera on the way." Johnson returned, breathless but triumphant. "All set, Sarge. I rigged the tanks with a delayed fuse. Should give us about 3 minutes to clear out." "Good work," Torres acknowledged. "Everyone get ready to move on my mark." As the team prepared to evacuate, a tremendous explosion rocked the clearing outside, but it wasn't Johnson's propane tanks. Through the smoke and flames, Torres could see a Humvee crashing through the tree line, its mounted machine gun blazing away at the alien positions. "Cavalry's here," Rodriguez shouted jubilantly. Lieutenant Rivera had arrived, and he'd apparently seen enough to dispense with questions about whether aliens were real. The .50 caliber machine gun mounted on the Humvee was tearing through the forest, forcing the aliens to take cover. "Now's our chance," Torres ordered. "Move out. Link up with Rivera." The team burst from the burning cabin, laying down covering fire as they sprinted toward the Humvee. Zhang was hit in the shoulder by an energy bolt and went down, but Reese grabbed him by his tactical vest and half-dragged, half-carried him the remaining distance. As they reached the vehicle, Lieutenant Rivera's shocked face told Torres everything she needed to know. He hadn't fully believed the reports until this moment. "Staff Sergeant Torres," he managed, eyes wide as he stared at the clearly non-human figures returning fire from the tree line. "What in God's name are we dealing with here?" "Hostile extraterrestrial force, sir," Torres reported crisply as she helped Zhang into the vehicle. "At least a dozen ground troops with advanced energy weapons, plus airborne drones and a heavy weapons platform." The lieutenant nodded numbly, still processing the situation. "I've called in everything I could. Blackhawks with a QRF are inbound from Fort Carson, ETA 30 minutes. Until then..." His words were cut off as Johnson's improvised propane bomb detonated. The cabin erupted in a massive fireball, the shock wave rocking the Humvee and sending flaming debris raining across the clearing. "Time to go, sir," Torres urged. Rivera didn't need to be told twice. The Humvee reversed course, its wheels spinning in the dirt before finding traction and speeding back toward the forest road, the machine gunner continuing to provide covering fire. As they retreated, Torres looked back to see the alien commander emerge from the tree line, standing amidst the burning wreckage of the cabins. Even at this distance, something about its posture communicated pure, unadulterated rage. Aboard the hegemony ship, Admiral Yerkes was beyond furious. The massive alien paced the command deck, his scales now almost black with anger as he reviewed the combat footage from Commander Dreyeyes' failed assault. "Unacceptable!" he roared, slamming a clawed fist into a nearby console. cracking its surface. Absolutely unacceptable. Commander Dreyeyes stood at attention, his armor still bearing scorch marks from the human's explosive trap. Beside him, Strategic Officer Thex maintained a respectful silence, though her antennae twitched nervously. 6 of my elite warriors wounded or dead. Yerkes continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. 1 heavy weapons platform disabled. 3 combat drones destroyed. And the humans escaped, with reinforcements now arriving. He turned his massive head toward Dreyeyes. Explain yourself, Commander. Dreyeyes straightened, fighting to keep his voice steady. Admiral, these humans employed tactics we were unprepared for. They demonstrated knowledge of the terrain and remarkable adaptability in the face of superior technology. They are clearly elite warriors. Silence. Yerkes interrupted. I have studied the combat recordings myself. These were not elite warriors. Their weapons were primitive, their armor virtually non-existent. Yet somehow they managed to outmaneuver and outfight soldiers of the hegemony. He leaned forward, looming over Dreyeyes. Do you know what this suggests, Commander? Dreyeyes remained silent, aware that any answer would likely be the wrong one. It was Thex who finally spoke. It suggests our intelligence on human military capabilities is severely flawed, Admiral. Yerkes' gaze shifted to her. Precisely. And I intend to correct that flaw immediately. He straightened to his full imposing height. New orders, Commander. You will capture human military personnel for interrogation. I want to know exactly what we're facing here. Commander Dreyeyes saluted. It will be done, Admiral. I already have a plan to capture the human leader, this Staff Sergeant Torres. We've been tracking their vehicle. See that you succeed this time, Yerkes warned. I need not remind you of the Pelgri incident, and what happened to those who failed in that mission. Both Dreyeyes and Thex involuntarily shuddered. The Pelgri incident had become infamous within the hegemony military, a failed operation that had resulted in the commanding officers being assigned to waste reclamation duty in the acidic swamps of Scorb 4. Few survived more than a year in such postings. We will not fail, Admiral, Dreyeyes assured him, though his confidence sounded hollow even to his own hearing organs. As they left the command deck, Thex pulled Dreyeyes aside. Commander, I've been analyzing the human communications we've intercepted. There's something concerning. Dreyeyes tilted his head. What is it? These soldiers, the ones who have been resisting us so effectively, they keep referring to themselves as weakened warriors and National Guard. From what I can decipher, these terms suggest they are not, in fact, regular military forces. Dreyeyes' compound eyes widened. What are you suggesting, Thex? That we've been defeated by civilians. Not civilians exactly, Thex clarified, manipulating her data pad to display intercepted human communications. Based on these transmissions, the National Guard appears to be a part-time military force. They train periodically, but maintain civilian occupations otherwise. Dreyeyes stared at her in disbelief. Part-time soldiers? Are you saying we've lost warriors to humans who are not even full military personnel? I believe so, Commander, Thex replied carefully. And there's more. This particular unit seems to be what they call a scout unit or reconnaissance team, not their primary combat forces. Dreyeyes' mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme distress in a species. If these are merely part-time scouts, what are their full-time combat units capable of? Thex had no answer, but her silence spoke volumes. The Humvee carrying Torres and her team, along with Lieutenant Rivera, bounced along the rugged forest road, putting distance between themselves and the alien landing site. The lieutenant had been on his radio constantly since their escape, relaying information to higher command and coordinating the response. QRF is 20 minutes out, Rivera announced, setting down the handset. 2 Blackhawks with Army Rangers. They're taking this seriously now. Torres nodded grimly, inspecting Zhang's wound. The energy bolt had cauterized as it struck, leaving an angry burn across his shoulder, but minimal bleeding. How you doing, Corporal? She asked. Zhang grimaced, but managed a weak smile. I've had worse paintball injuries, Sarge. Johnson, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly leaned forward. "Lieutenant, sir, does command understand what we're dealing with here? These aren't Russians or terrorists. They're actual aliens with energy weapons and spaceships." Rivera's face was tense as he replied, "I sent them Johnson's video footage. They're scrambling everything they can, but it will take time. The good news is we've bought that time. The bad news," he glanced in the rearview mirror, "is that I think we're being followed." Torres turned to look out the back window. In the darkness, she could just make out strange lights moving through the forest parallel to the road, not following directly, but definitely keeping pace. "They're flanking us," Reese observed calmly, "trying to get ahead to set up an ambush." Torres made a quick decision. "Sir, we need to get off this road. They know where we're going." Rivera considered for a moment, then nodded. "There's an old fire road about half a mile ahead. It's rough terrain, but might throw them off. Or at least give us more options," Torres agreed. When they reached the turnoff, Rivera swung the Humvee onto the narrow dirt track, its headlights illuminating a tunnel of dense forest on either side. The vehicle slowed considerably as it navigated the rougher terrain. "Kill the lights," Torres suggested. "They've probably got night vision, but no need to make it easier for them." They continued in darkness, the Humvee creeping forward as Rivera navigated by moonlight filtering through the trees. Tension filled the vehicle as everyone strained their eyes and ears for signs of pursuit. The ambush, when it came, was both unexpected and overwhelming. A brilliant flash lit up the forest ahead, temporarily blinding everyone in the vehicle. Rivera braked hard, but too late. The Humvee slammed into some kind of energy barrier that had materialized across the road. "Contact all sides," Mackenzie shouted as shadowy figures converged on the stalled vehicle. Before anyone could react, the air filled with a strange mist that quickly penetrated the Humvee's interior. Torres felt her limbs growing heavy, her thoughts becoming sluggish. "Gas!" she managed to warn, but it was already too late. One by one, the soldiers slumped in their seats, consciousness fading. Torres fought the effect longer than the others, her hand fumbling for her sidearm, even as darkness crept into the edges of her vision. The last thing she saw was an alien face peering through the window at her, its compound eyes reflecting the moonlight in an eerily beautiful pattern. Then darkness claimed her. Torres awoke to the most bizarre sensation of her life, floating. No, not floating exactly. Suspended. She opened her eyes to find herself held upright in some kind of energy field, a slight blue glow surrounding her body. She could move her head and, to a limited extent, her limbs, but she was effectively immobilized. Looking around, she saw that she wasn't alone. Private Johnson and Lieutenant Rivera were similarly suspended nearby, both still unconscious. They appeared to be in some kind of metal chamber, with strange symbols and lights covering the walls. "She's awake," came a voice, oddly accented but understandable English. Torres turned her head to see two of the aliens entering the chamber. One she recognized from the forest, taller than the others, likely the commander. The second was more slender, with different markings on its exoskeleton. "You speak English," Torres managed, her mouth dry and her head pounding. The slender alien touched a device on its neck. "We have translation devices. Primitive language structures like yours are easy to process." Torres wasn't sure whether to be impressed or offended. "Where are we? What have you done with my team?" The commander alien stepped closer, studying her with unnerving intensity. "You are aboard our ship. The rest of your team is unharmed for now. They will remain that way if you cooperate. And if I don't," Torres challenged. The alien made a clicking sound that might have been amusement. "Then things become unpleasant. But let's not begin that way." It gestured to itself. "I am Commander Dre Eyes of the Hegemony Expansion Force. This is Strategic Officer Thex." Torres decided that playing along might yield useful information. "Staff Sergeant Maria Torres, United States National Guard." The aliens exchanged a look that Torres couldn't interpret. Thex stepped forward, manipulating a floating screen that appeared in the air before her. "This National Guard, explain its function," she demanded. Torres considered what to say. Part of her military training had covered conduct during interrogation, Give name, rank, and service number, nothing more. But this wasn't a conventional war, and gathering intelligence went both ways. We're a reserve military force, she said carefully. Part-time soldiers who train regularly, but maintain civilian lives otherwise. Commander Drey's reaction was immediate and visible, a rippling of his exoskeleton that seemed to indicate shock. Part-time? You're not even full warriors. Torres couldn't help but feel a twinge of pride at his reaction. That's right. Weekend warriors, some call us. We train 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. Nearby, Johnson was beginning to stir. The young private blinked awake, took in their bizarre surroundings, and let out a low whistle. Holy shit, he murmured. We're on our spaceship, aren't we? Thex turned toward him. This human appears young. Is he a juvenile? I'm 22, Johnson protested, sounding genuinely offended. Torres shot him a warning look. Private Johnson is one of our youngest soldiers, but he's fully qualified. Commander Drey's leaned in closer to Johnson. Tell me, young human, what is your primary function when not engaged in military activities? Johnson blinked, clearly confused by the question. I'm a computer science student, and I work part-time at GameStop. The aliens conferred in their own language, a series of clicks and hisses that the translation devices apparently weren't converting. Torres could tell from their body language that they were agitated. Lieutenant Rivera had now regained consciousness as well, and was taking in the situation with the calm assessment of a professional officer. He caught Torres's eye and gave her an almost imperceptible nod, a signal to keep them talking. So, Torres said loudly, drawing the alien's attention back to her. You're called the Hegemony? What exactly are you doing on Earth? Commander Drey's straightened, his posture becoming more formal. The Hegemony expands. It is what we do. Your world has resources we require, and its strategic position is valuable. Your species would eventually be integrated, those who survive. Integrated? Rivera spoke for the first time, his voice steady despite their circumstances. You mean enslaved? A primitive interpretation. Thex responded dismissively. The process is more complex than your limited understanding can grasp. Johnson, apparently unable to contain himself, blurted out. So you guys just go around invading planets? And how's that working out for you here? Getting your butts kicked by a few National Guard troops on a weekend training exercise. Torres winced at Johnson's lack of tact, but the effect on Commander Drey's was remarkable. The alien's color seemed to change subtly, and his mandibles clicked rapidly. This was indeed merely a training exercise for you, Drey's demanded. Not a special combat mission. Torres saw no reason to lie. We were conducting routine navigation and survival training. We weren't expecting to encounter anyone, let alone extraterrestrials. Thex manipulated her floating screen again, bringing up images that Torres recognized as their unit patches and insignia. Your designations, 147th Reconnaissance Company? This indicates you are a scouting unit, yes? Not primary combat forces. Lieutenant Rivera answered before Torres could. That's correct. Reconnaissance and intelligence gathering is our primary function. We support the main combat elements. Torres could almost see the wheels turning in the aliens' minds as they processed this information. They were clearly reaching some kind of disturbing conclusion. Commander Drey's turned abruptly to Thex. Show them the human military response currently mobilizing. Thex hesitated. Commander, is that wise? Do it, Drey's insisted. The floating screen shifted to show aerial footage, apparently from some kind of high-altitude drone or satellite. It displayed military vehicles converging on the area where they had encountered the aliens, along with helicopter gunships and what appeared to be a formation of fighter jets. This is your species' response, Drey stated. Currently en route to our landing zone. These are your main combat elements, I presume. Torres felt a surge of pride, seeing the rapid and substantial military response. That's only the beginning, she said, allowing herself a small smile. Those are just the closest units that could respond immediately. Johnson, catching on to her strategy, added, wait till the Army Rangers and Delta Force show up. Or the Marines. Marines live for this kind of thing. And that's just ground forces Rivera contributed smoothly. Our Air Force and Navy assets are probably mobilizing as we speak. Torres could see the strategy working. The aliens were growing increasingly agitated. She decided to push further. You know, it's almost lucky for you that it was just us you encountered, she remarked casually. A single National Guard reconnaissance squad with basic weapons. Imagine if you'd landed near one of our major military bases. Commander Dreyeyes studied her for a long moment, his alien features unreadable. Then he turned to Thex. Prepare the prisoners for transport back to the surface. We need to consult with the Admiral immediately. As the aliens left the chamber, Torres exchanged glances with Rivera and Johnson. They'd managed to plant seeds of doubt in the aliens' minds, maybe enough to buy more time for Earth's actual military response to mobilize. But as the door sealed behind the aliens, Torres couldn't shake the feeling that they were still in grave danger. The hegemony clearly hadn't expected significant resistance, but would that make them back down or escalate? On the hegemony warship's command deck, Admiral Yerkes viewed the human military response with growing concern. The thermal and electromagnetic signatures were unmistakable. Dozens of human vehicles, aircraft, and what appeared to be several hundred ground troops converging on their landing zone. They responded this quickly, he rumbled, his massive frame looming over the holographic display. How is this possible? Commander Dreyeyes, freshly returned from interrogating the human prisoners, stood at attention before his superior. Admiral, I have learned disturbing information from the captives. The humans we encountered initially, the ones who have caused us such difficulty, they're not their primary military force. Yerkes turned his massive head toward Dreyeyes. Explain. They call themselves National Guard, a reserve force that trains only periodically. According to the prisoners, these were merely reconnaissance troops on a training exercise. Dreyeyes gestured to the holographic display showing the approaching human forces. Those are their regular military units responding. Strategic Officer Thex added, Admiral, if a small reconnaissance unit of part-time soldiers could inflict such damage on our elite forces, we must reconsider our assessment of human military capabilities. Admiral Yerkes was silent for a long moment, his scales shifting through various colors as he processed this information. Finally, he spoke. Show me the prisoners. A holographic image appeared, showing Torres, Johnson, and Rivera suspended in the holding chamber. These are the ones who led the resistance against your forces, Commander. Yerkes asked. Dreyeyes confirmed with a gesture. The female is their leader, Staff Sergeant Torres. The younger male is Private Johnson, and the other is a superior officer who arrived with reinforcements, Lieutenant Rivera. Yerkes studied the humans with interest. They look unremarkable, yet they managed to outmaneuver our forces, destroy our equipment, and delay our mission significantly. He turned to face Dreyeyes and Thex. What is your assessment of their claim? Are they truly just a reconnaissance unit on a training exercise? Thex responded first. Their equipment and communication patterns support their claim, Admiral. Everything about them suggests they're indeed a small, non-specialized unit that was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Dreyeyes reluctantly agreed. Their performance in combat far exceeded what their apparent status would suggest, Admiral. If they are merely scouts, then their main combat forces must be formidable. Admiral Yerkes' color darkened as he reached a decision. The hegemony does not expend resources needlessly. We select conquest targets based on careful assessment of resistance capability versus resource value. He gestured to the display showing the rapidly advancing human military forces. This response suggests our intelligence was catastrophically flawed. Dreyeyes ventured a suggestion. Admiral, perhaps we should withdraw temporarily, gather more accurate intelligence, and return with a force appropriate to the actual threat level. Yerkes' massive head swiveled toward the commander. Are you suggesting retreat, Commander Dreyeyes? After a first contact skirmish with primitive aliens. Dreyeyes stiffened. Not retreat, Admiral. Strategic redeployment. For a tense moment, it seemed the Admiral might punish such a suggestion. Instead, he let out a sound that might have been a sigh. The Council would not approve the resources necessary for a full-scale invasion based on this initial contact, he admitted, particularly given the unexpected resistance encountered. He turned to his communications officer. Prepare a message to High Command. We are withdrawing from this sector to reassess. Commander Dreyeyes couldn't hide his relief. And the prisoners, Admiral? Return them, Yerkes decided. But first, ensure they understand the consequences of further resistance. The hegemony may withdraw today, but we do not forget. Thex spoke up hesitantly. Admiral, if I may suggest, the humans believe we're defeated by their weekend warriors. This perception may serve us well in future engagements. If they believe their part-time forces were sufficient to repel us. Admiral Yerkes considered this, then nodded slowly. A valid tactical consideration. Yes, let them believe their victory was more complete than it was. It may make them complacent when we return in force. In the holding chamber, Torres had been trying to formulate an escape plan with Rivera and Johnson, but the alien technology surrounding them made it seemingly impossible. Their conversation was interrupted when the door slid open to reveal Commander Dreyeyes and several armed hegemony soldiers. You will be returned to your planet's surface, Dreyeyes announced without preamble. Torres eyed him suspiciously. Just like that? You're letting us go. The hegemony is reassessing our approach to your world, Dreyeyes replied carefully. Further conflict at this time would be inefficient. Johnson couldn't contain a small whoop of victory. You're retreating. We scared you off. Dreyeyes' mandibles clicked in what Torres was beginning to recognize as irritation. Do not misunderstand, human. The hegemony does not retreat. We simply recognize when a different approach is required. He stepped closer to Torres. When we return, and we will return, it will be with forces appropriate to the level of resistance encountered. Torres met his compound gaze steadily. And when you do, we'll be ready. Next time, it won't just be a National Guard scout unit you run into. Indeed, Dreyeyes replied, his tone almost respectful. Your weekend warriors have proven unexpectedly formidable. I can only imagine what your full military might entails. As the energy fields deactivated and the humans were escorted from the chamber, Torres caught a glimpse through a viewport of Earth below them. Beautiful, blue, and suddenly much more precious knowing that it had drawn the attention of an interstellar empire. The return to Earth was unceremonious. The humans were placed in what appeared to be a small transport craft, still under guard by armed aliens. As they descended toward the surface, Rivera leaned over to Torres. Did that just happen? He whispered. Did we just talk an alien invasion force into retreating? Torres shook her head in amazement. I think we did, sir. Or at least, we bought some time. Johnson was practically vibrating with excitement. Do you realize what this means? We're going to be in history books. The National Guard unit that saved Earth. That's going to look amazing on my resume. Torres couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm. Let's just focus on getting back on solid ground first, Private. The transport landed in the same clearing where the aliens had first established their base, now scorched and cratered from the conflict. As they were escorted off the craft, Torres could see that the main alien ship was already lifting off, its massive form rising silently into the night sky. Commander Dreyeyes was the last to exit the transport. He approached Torres one final time. Your species has earned a temporary reprieve, Staff Sergeant Torres. Use it wisely. He handed her a small metallic device. This will signal your position to your approaching forces. I suggest activating it after we depart. Torres accepted the device cautiously. Why are you helping us? Dreyeyes' alien features were impossible to read, but something in his posture suggested a grudging respect. The hegemony values worthy adversaries. You and your weekend warriors have proven to be such. With that, he turned and re-entered the transport. Moments later, it too lifted off, joining the larger ship ascending into the atmosphere. As promised, the device Dreyeyes had given them emitted a signal that quickly brought the approaching military forces to their location. Within an hour, Torres, Rivera, and Johnson found themselves surrounded by Army Rangers, Air Force personnel, and a growing number of bewildered government officials. The debriefing took place in a hastily established command center a safe distance from the original landing site. Torres watched with some amusement as Johnson enthusiastically recounted their adventures to increasingly wide-eyed officers and intelligence personnel. And then I said, "Wait till the Marines show up," and you could literally see the alien commander freaking out. Johnson was explaining, complete with animated gestures. Torres turned to find Colonel Davidson, the commanding officer of the response force, approaching her. "Staff Sergeant Torres," he greeted her formally. "I've reviewed Lieutenant Rivera's preliminary report. It's frankly unbelievable." "But true, sir," Torres confirmed. "Every word." Davidson nodded slowly. "So, the National Guard reconnaissance squad on a routine training exercise encountered and effectively fought off an alien advance force. With some luck and home field advantage, yes, sir." The colonel shook his head in amazement. "You know what this means, don't you? Every military on Earth is going to be scrambling to prepare for their return." Torres thought about Commander Drey's parting words. "That's exactly what we need to do, sir. They will be back, and next time they'll be better prepared." "As will we," Davidson assured her. "Thanks to you and your team, we know what we're facing now." He paused, then added with a hint of admiration, "Not bad for a weekend warrior, Staff Sergeant." Torres smiled tiredly. "Just doing our job, sir." As the debriefing continued into the night, Torres found a moment of quiet to step outside the command tent. She looked up at the stars, wondering which one might be home to the hegemony. The night sky would never look quite the same to her again. Corporal Reese joined her, offering a cup of coffee. "Quite a weekend training exercise, huh, Sarge?" Torres accepted the coffee gratefully. "Not exactly what I had in mind when I filed the training plan." Heard from Zhang and the others. "They're all okay." Being debriefed separately, Reese sipped his own coffee. "So, aliens. Actual aliens." And they retreated. "For now," Torres reminded him. Reese nodded thoughtfully. "You know what gets me? The look on that alien commander's face when he realized he was losing to a National Guard scout unit. Priceless." Torres laughed, feeling some of the tension of the past 24 hours finally breaking. "Can you imagine what he told his superiors? We were defeated by humans who only train once a month. Probably got him demoted to alien latrine duty," Reese suggested with a rare smile. Torres's laughter faded as she considered the broader implications. "They'll be back, Reese. And next time they won't underestimate us." "No," Reese agreed. "But next time, we'll be ready for them." In the vastness of space, aboard the retreating hegemony warship, Commander Drey stood before a viewport, watching as the blue-green planet receded into the distance. Strategic Officer Thex approached, standing silently beside him for a moment before speaking. "The Admiral has confirmed our withdrawal order with High Command," she reported. "They've authorized a comprehensive intelligence gathering operation before any further contact with the humans." Drey acknowledged this with a slight nod, but remained staring at the diminishing Earth. "Something troubles you, Commander?" Thex inquired. "I keep thinking about those humans," Drey admitted. "Their primitive weapons, their improvised tactics, their surprising effectiveness despite their limited training." "They were resourceful," Thex agreed. "More than that," Drey turned to face her. "They were volunteers, weekend warriors as they called themselves. Fighting not because they were bred for it like our warriors, but because they chose to defend their territory." Thex tilted her head curiously. "You admire them?" "I find them interesting," Drey corrected carefully. "And concerning. We encountered only a scout unit of part-time soldiers, Thex. Consider what their full military might must be like." Both aliens turned to look once more at the planet, now just a bright dot among countless stars. "The hegemony has conquered hundreds of worlds," Thex observed. "Yet none quite like this one." "No," Drey agreed. "But we will return. Better. Prepared, better informed." "And the humans?" Thex asked. "They will be preparing as well." Commander Drey's mandibles clicked softly. "Yes. Next time, it won't be just a scout unit we face." He straightened his posture, military discipline reasserting itself. "But the hegemony will adapt. We always do." As the warship accelerated to light speed, Earth vanished from view, But the question lingered in Dreyai's mind. If the hegemony's elite forces had struggled against a human scout unit on a training exercise, what would happen when they face humanity's full military might? It was a question that would haunt the hegemony's planning for years to come. Back on Earth, in a high-security briefing room deep beneath the Pentagon, the highest-ranking military officials of the United States gathered to discuss the implications of first contact. Photos of the alien technology, footage from Johnson's phone, and testimonies from Torres and her team were presented and analyzed. Gentlemen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff concluded, we faced an advanced force of what appears to be a vast interstellar empire. And thanks to the actions of a National Guard reconnaissance unit on a routine training exercise, we've gained invaluable intelligence and time to prepare. A four-star general shook his head in amazement. So they really thought they were fighting our elite forces? And retreated when they learned it was just a National Guard scout unit? Yes, sir, confirmed the intelligence officer giving the briefing. According to Staff Sergeant Torres's report, the alien commanders seemed genuinely shocked to learn they were fighting what they termed part-time warriors. Laughter rippled through the room. Tense, relieved laughter that masked the gravity of the situation. Well, the chairman said as the laughter subsided, I suggest we make the most of the time they've bought us. Because next time, these hegemony forces won't be so easily misled about our military capabilities. As the meeting adjourned and plans for Earth's defense began taking shape, across the country in a military hospital, Staff Sergeant Maria Torres sat beside Corporal Zhang's bed. His shoulder was healing well, the alien weapon having cauterized the wound even as it created it. The doctors say I'll be back to full duty in a month, Zhang reported cheerfully. Just in time for our next drill weekend. Torres smiled. Something tells me our training schedule might be a little different going forward. You think? Zhang laughed. Alien invasion defense wasn't exactly in the field manual. It might be in the next edition, Torres pointed out. They fell silent for a moment, each contemplating how much had changed in just a few days. Finally, Zhang voiced what they were both thinking. They're coming back, aren't they? Torres nodded solemnly. Yes, but next time, it won't just be a National Guard scout unit waiting for them. Zhang grinned. Poor aliens. They have no idea what they're in for. As Torres left the hospital that evening, she paused to look up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the hegemony was regrouping, planning, preparing for their return. But so was Earth. And if a single National Guard reconnaissance squad could repel their advance force, what chance would they have against the combined might of humanity? The stars seemed to twinkle in response, as if acknowledging the new chapter in human history that had begun with a chance encounter in the mountains. The day humanity learned it was not alone in the universe, and that it could stand against whatever the cosmos might send its way, even if it was just a weekend warrior scout unit leading the charge. That night, Commander Dreyai's dreamed of Earth, a small blue planet defended by part-time soldiers who had somehow outmaneuvered the elite forces of the mighty hegemony. In his dream, he kept hearing Private Johnson's incredulous voice. You're retreating because of us? We're just weekend warriors. Dreyai's awoke with a start, his exoskeleton damp with stress hormones. As he gathered himself, one thought remained clear in his mind. The hegemony had encountered many species across the galaxy, conquered hundreds of worlds, but none quite like Earth. None with warriors who trained just 1 week in a month, yet fought like seasoned veterans. The humans would be ready next time, and so would the hegemony. But one question would haunt both sides in the coming conflict. If that was just a scout unit of weakened warriors, what would the real battle be like? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The hegemony commanders would forever be horrified that they had only fought a human scout unit, and humanity would forever be changed by the knowledge that they were not alone, and that even their part-time soldiers could stand against the stars.